Following the court order. Over a decade ago, I came home to find I was being moved out by my wife. We weren't in a great place, but I was blindsided. I was also served with a protection order that stated I could not come home without prior written permission. I had to go through my wife to see the kids, etc., and it was in effect for 90 days. I was devastated. A relative connected me with a bulldog of a lawyer. This lady was brilliant and no nonsense. She filed a rebuttal to the protection order, but told me these things take time and we were unlikely to see a judge before the 90 days were up. She was very clear that I must follow the court order to the letter. If there was any evidence otherwise, I'd be in an uphill battle if and when my wife renewed it. It only took one day before my now ex needed me to take the kids. I had crashed at a friend's house, so I had no place to take them, so we agreed I'd watch them at home. I waited a few blocks away while waiting for an email. Ex called me and I reminded her of the details of the order and that I wouldn't come until I had permission. This happened twice more that I waited down the street within the first week, so I told her I wouldn't leave where I was staying until I had the email. It was about 20 minutes away. I texted her to remind her. The very next day, she again didn't email. We were planning on me picking up the kids to take them to school, since their school was only a few minutes from my work. However, because I had not received written permission, I ran out of time to drive to pick up the kids, and then make it to their school and work. She called furious that I wasn't there. I reminded her about the permission, and that I was out of time. She ended up being very late to work that day. She then wanted to write me blanket permission to come and go as needed, but my lawyer advised against it. Follow the order. The culmination of this was a few weeks later when she again forgot to send permission. Her boyfriend was staying over, but didn't have his car with him. They both had to get to work, and that was the day I learned that he was her direct supervisor. Ex had to call a friend from work to pick up kids and take them to school, and the friend found out. Of course, it got out at their work. Within a week of that, the boyfriend was fired over their relationship, and my ex was suspended. By this time I had my own place, so the kids ended up staying with me most days. I later learned that the protection order was the boyfriend's idea. Ex was quite mad about it, as it turned into evidence that I wasn't a threat to her or the family, and the judge was quite harsh with her over it when we settled for support and parenting time. She called it intentional and harmful parental alienation. And now for an update to this story, 10 years later. This is the second part that was removed from Pro Revenge. I'll maybe fix it later there. This is the second half of a decade-long tale that is currently resolving in a delightful way. A decade ago, my then wife, now ex-wife, began a relationship with a guy and kicked me out of my house. The boyfriend was instrumental in blindsiding me and planning on how to keep me from my own kids. Ever since, I've kinda hated him. I've always been polite and respectful with boyfriend because he'd become my kid's stepdad, but I swore if I ever had the chance I'd get back at him. I figured it'd be something petty, but then he gift-wrapped my revenge, and I've been running with it for almost 3 weeks now. My kids are mostly grown now, some in university, some in grades 11 and 12. The uni kids live with me while the high school kids still go back and forth with their mum. I'm also remarried now. My wife and I each have our own vehicles, but my wife owns and insures a minivan for when we are all going somewhere together. The kids are free to use it too, as only one has a car. We only have one set of keys, so I put an AirTag on it. It's a little transponder that tracks its location. I put it on there in case the keys were lost. About 3 weeks ago, one of my older kids took the van out for the night, but ended up staying at his mum's on the couch. Around 7 a.m. the next day, another kid asked to use the van. I pinged the AirTag, only to find out it was hours away in an industrial section of another town. I was quite concerned why my kid was out there. I called him up, and he was at his mum's where he said he'd be. He had no idea the van was missing. I called the police and gave them the location of the van. Within 20 minutes they had stopped the van and the driver said he had permission to use it. Lo and behold, it's my ex-wife's boyfriend. The police weren't very interested in detaining him, as it would be easier for him to just drive the van back to our town and we could sort it out here. However, it wasn't my van, nor was he listed on the insurance to drive it. I asked that it be impounded. In Canada, we can't press charges, but I was adamant that this was theft and that I wasn't going to let it go. Since the guy was out of town with no ride, the police did end up detaining him, probably because it was easier. I was given info for the yard where the van was impounded. Since we had the next day off, my wife and I drove out to the yard to pick it up. When we got there, I first checked for damage since it was sitting a little low. Nothing outside. When I checked inside, I found that it was loaded with industrial fasteners and cable. Think seismic mitigation. Turns out boyfriend used my wife's van to pick up stuff for work. My wife turns on her heels and walks to the office. I had to jog to keep up. She asks who has access to the van. They have the only set of keys, so my wife is assured of only her or me. At this point, I get where she's going with this. I instruct them that no one has access to the van but us. I had $35 with me, so I gave it to them as a tip. They promised me that no one would get in there, and they actually moved the van into a secured area within the yard. Then we went home without the van. We weren't even home from the long drive when I got the first text from boyfriend about getting the equipment. I explained that we left the van as there were expenses we were not going to pay. Towing, impounding fees, daily storage. I told him that he'd have to pay for them before I pick up the van. He was super mad and swore he'll pay me back. I said no way. Within an hour I got a call from his boss. They need the equipment ASAP for a time-sensitive job. I explained that it was impounded and that I won't have time to get it until next week now. And it has to be paid in advance. Boss swears up and down at me. I calmly explain that I didn't steal a vehicle to transport his stuff. Boss was having none of that, so I said I won't tolerate the abuse and hung up. Then I blocked him and his company on every platform I'm reachable on. And that was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been able to make excuses every single time boyfriend tries to arrange picking up the van. Often because the kids don't have the van, so I have to drive them. Boss has gotten through a couple times using other numbers and sent a ton of emails that I ignore. But I did reply and explain that both my wife and I need about 4 hours to do the round trip and that it needs to be paid for ahead of time. And it's added up. $25 a day for secure storage, plus towing and impound fees, etc. Plus I wanted to be paid for the fuel boyfriend used, as well as our travel. Boyfriend and I agreed on the standard 58 cents per kilometre, and so the boss e-transferred us for the total cost of our driving. By now the van has made one trip, and our car has done two. It came to almost $600. So on Friday, it finally happened. My wife and I drove out and picked up the van. It was prepaid and ready to be released. I dropped off a dozen beers at the office when I picked up the keys and went to grab the van. However, I wasn't going to transport boss and boyfriend stuff, so I arranged for it to be held at the yard at the same rate as the vehicle, unloaded it, and left right before it closed for the weekend. I got a call from boyfriend asking when he can come by with a work truck to get the stuff. I told him it's still at the impound, almost 2 hours away, and the office opens Monday at 9. There was only silence on the other end, so I hung up after about 10 seconds. Through this, I've been getting vague updates from my ex, who I've got a good relationship with now. She was livid with boyfriend and was clear with me that any and all consequences were squarely on him. He's kept his job, but is missing the next pay increase and is not getting his year-end bonus. Ex said they're way too short-staffed to let him go, but he's in the doghouse at home and at work. No word on criminal charges for taking the van, but Crown handles that, and I'm not suing in civil court. Our next story is titled, Management Says I Can't Wear Scrubs in Healthcare. So about 10 years ago, I'm 35 male now, I became a CNA, a certified nurse's aide, and worked at an assisted living. In many of these types of buildings, corporate does not want the nursing home, so they make their nurses and CNAs wear business casual clothes. The place I was at required us to wear a collared shirt and khakis or black pants. Now I'm a 6'3" male, on the skinnier side, that has been told my legs are so long I look like I'm walking on stilts. That being said, finding khakis isn't easy, and I usually need to custom order them, which can be pricey. Also, I'd like to note that this building has hard carpet everywhere, and I would end up kneeling down to help tie shoes or do other things while helping out my residents, and ended up blowing out the knees on my khakis often. On the malicious compliance. One day, management says that we were allowed to wear appropriate yoga pants that were black or khaki coloured, with no reason given. This does nothing to help me in my holy khaki situation, and as I was making $12 an hour, custom-ordered pants were very expensive to me. So I decided I was going to buy black and khaki scrub pants because they are cheaper and more durable. I go on wearing them for about a week without issue when management calls me in and states that the policy is no scrub pants, and I would be written up if I do it again. I try to explain the financial situation, that each pair of khakis were costing me most of a day's wage, and the knees would wear it quick. They respond with, "Tough crap, no scrubs." I then grab the flyer they posted about yoga pants and start to make the case that if women are allowed to wear yoga pants, which are much cheaper, I should be able to wear scrubs. Again they say, "No, it's not the same." At this point, I look down and see the wording on the flyer is, "As a thank you for your hard work, management has decided to allow all nursing staff to wear appropriate yoga pants if they would like. No gender noted, just that they must be black or khaki and not low cut." Cue the malicious compliance. I go home and tell my girlfriend at the time about this and ask her for a pair of her black yoga pants. Just an FYI, she was barely 5'3", and when I tried them on, they barely went past my knees. They covered my butt though, so they worked. The next day I walked into work proudly sporting the high water yoga pants with my hairy calves, stilt-like legs, and black, juicy lettering on my butt. I made sure to tuck in my shirt so everyone could revel in my glorious bony butt. 1 hour into my shift, when management gets there, I instantly get called into the office with my boss and HR. "OP, what are you doing? You are not wearing the correct uniform and we will need to send you home now." I grab the flyer and point out that nowhere did they ever say that this was only for women to wear, and they also don't say anything about the length on it. I then say that they are at appropriate height. I put my hands on my hips, do a 180 to show off, and smile at them looking over my shoulder. Boss: "That's not the point, OP. You know what we meant." HR: "Actually, that is the point. He's right. You did say nursing staff could wear these, and they fit the criteria you put in place." Boss has a wicked scowl on her face knowing she got beat, but then pauses and laughs. "Okay, fine, wear your scrubs. Just no more yoga pants. I've already heard the female residents talking about your juicy butt more than I'd like. Go home and change though." For a long time I got teased by a bunch of 85-year-old women about when I was going to be showing off my juicy butt and legs again, but at least I got to wear scrubs. The next title is, "Lie all you like, boss, but don't expect me to..." Staying vague because of reasons. I used to work in manufacturing and was part of a process engineering or PE team. The team would create areas for members to work in with specific equipment for the job. My job was to price up and order and install the equipment. The equipment was in kit form, and every area needed a version of the kit. Like a jigsaw, some needed a 200-piece, some needed 1,000, but it was all the same bits. We were tasked with a new process. The PEs figured out what they wanted, and I set about pricing it all up, using what I already had, and created an order, receipt, and install plan. New process was 12 weeks away, and the stuff I needed had a 6-week lead time. No problem. That was until the money men pulled all funding, and new directive was to install new process with zero cost. Genius. So, at 12 weeks to go, I told all the PEs there's going to be no new equipment. I moved on to other tasks, abandoning all the kit work. We have weekly meetings where I report every week. Well, I have no money, so no new kits. At 5 weeks to go, all the PEs and manufacturing teams eventually realize they are in trouble. Without the kits, they have massive increases in their process times and won't achieve the process. So they all go, en masse, to the money men. "We need these kits." After a few days, one of my bosses, I had loads, comes to me and says, "Got you the money, order them kits." "Well, it's a bit useless to ask now," I reply. "All the kit plans are from 12 weeks ago, and apart from the fact most of the PE's plans will have changed, the kits won't get here in time anyway, as it's 4 weeks to go and the stuff needs to be ordered 6 weeks before." "Just order it anyway, we'll sort it," he demands. "There's no point, boss. That ship has sailed. Supplier won't be able to deliver." "Right, let's go talk to the supplier." So off we go, 3-hour drive, where my boss asks the supplier, "What can we do to get the kits on time?" "Order it when OP told you to." I could have kissed him. "But whatever we do now, I cannot guarantee when you will get it, so plan for 6 weeks. I was asked to leave the room, where I assume they discussed money. I believe, not certain, the original cost I had priced up was nearly doubled. So, back in the office the next day, with 4 weeks to go, the boss comes to me and says, "Can you create a receiving plan for the kits, please?" So I do, with a 6-week lead time, to arrive 2 weeks later than we needed. I show the boss. Change the receiving date to 4 weeks, not 6. "But that's not correct, boss." "Just do it. I'll lean on supply, get it sorted." I redo the plan, 4-week lead time, not 6. I print off a couple of copies, give one to boss 1, then go straight to another boss 2 and inform him of what's going on. Boss 2 thanks me for the info and follows boss 1 into a manager meeting, where sure enough, boss 1 tells everyone the kits will be here in 4 weeks. Lots of well dones and good jobs are slapped upon boss 1. In the next 4 weeks, boss 1 rings supplier every day and reports back everything is peachy. Boss 2 gets me to follow up daily with supplier, and it's far from peachy. They are in chaos, trying to get multiple kits together with zero prep and short lead time. Install day arrives. Supplier has not been ready. Boss 1 insists they send what they have. Boss 1 feeds back there's a delay. Upper management are furious. "Who told you that it would be ready?" Boss 1. "I was just going off the receiving schedule." Boss 2 interjects. "Excuse me, but my equipment guy gave me a plan that did say 6 weeks. Upper management. "Who is doing 2 different schedules?" Boss 1. "There's obviously been a mistake. I'll investigate." Where did you get that schedule?" Boss 1. "Let's take this outside this meeting and I'll fully brief you." Anyway, so remember I said it's like a jigsaw? The first delivery, supplier gets sent the corner pieces for every kit. Next day, the bottom edge pieces for every kit. The next, the top edge pieces for every kit. Basically, we ended up receiving a bit of every jigsaw every day for 2 weeks. So 6 weeks after ordering, all the jigsaws were in, exactly like I told them they would be. Thanks to a bit of jiggery-pokery on my part, we managed, with my excellent team, to install kits daily by using the new stuff and idiotizing old stuff. I was kind of the face of the kit, so I wanted it in to save face, really. No one ever asked me about the schedules, and Boss 2 tells me that the right people found out what happened. Boss 1 was told that he needed to relocate to another country or there wasn't a position for him anymore, so he basically was forced to leave our site. I eventually had my fill too. I left soon after. Who wants to be in a job where the very thing they employ you to do, they tell you you are wrong and ignore you, then ask you to pick up the pieces of the wreckage afterwards? Our next story is titled, "Just follow the instructions? Okay." So during my high school years, my family moved into a new place, and thus began the process of moving our pantry into our new basement. One of my parents bought a whole array of metal shelving from somewhere, and told me to go down and assemble the first unit. I was informed that they were to be freestanding right where the box was, and not to move them because they wanted them there. Lo and behold, as I unfolded the instructions and commenced reading through them before building said shelf, I noticed that they were not freestanding shelves, but were meant to be screwed into a wall, and there was even a step for that. The instructions themselves referred to them as not freestanding, and warned that they should be built next to a wall and then screwed to it, or they would not hold weight. I returned to said parental unit and attempted to inform them of this, only to meet exactly what I expected. I was told I was just being lazy and trying to get out of a job. I was lying about what the instructions said because parental unit would never have purchased the wrong thing. Besides, who would sell shelves that weren't freestanding? That'd be stupid, etc., etc. I suggested moving the shelves over to the wall for support and was told to stop being lazy and disrespectful and to go build the shelves now, where they'd been placed. Alright, so I went back down to the basement and did just that. They were flimsy as anything on their own, but they were up. Soon enough, parental unit attempts to fill them and the shelves fail, buckling. Parental unit starts reaming me out for failing to build them properly. I replied that I had failed to build them properly because I'd been ordered not to build them properly, and once again pointed out that on both the outside of the box and the instructions it said that the shelves were not freestanding. Parent replied that I was, honestly I don't even remember, but it was in the vein most of you would guess, disrespectful, unable to follow directions, etc., etc., and they were going to prove it by showing me how it was done, and building another set of shelves after which they were going to charge me for the shelving I'd ruined with my laziness. About an hour later, there was another crash from the basement as the second set of shelves buckled. They never said another word to me about it, but a day or so later, the rest of the shelves were up and screwed into the wall as the instructions dictated, and they're still there all these years later.